More liquidity and institution adoption is coming to Hedera. This is our Hedera news segment. We're going to look at council member IBM. It just announced broader support for Hedera. These new ETF moves look promising. We're going to dive deeper into the latest on Hedera ETFs. More institutions are buying into the Hedera ecosystem, according to this Hedera wallet CEO. We will dive into that. And the Bank of England news that we teased recently actually looks a lot more solid. It is confirmed. We will dive into that news all on today's Frugal BC. If you like this kind of stuff, please hit the like and subscribe button. As I always say, you don't have to smash it. And actually just press it gently and it works just fine that way too. Always bringing you the news around utility chains, trying the experiments, trying things out, letting you know how they work, while also giving you the news from the blockchain, utility blockchains that you love as well as I do. So we're going to dive into all that. By the way, not an Algorand video, so we're going to give a brief shout out to our sponsors, our channel sponsors, Haystack, the app, trading app on Algorand that makes it so much easier, and the Marcus Aurelius coin. Get yourself some Marcus today, spreading the word about Stoicism. But let's get to today's news. I want to start off by saying Councilmember IBM just announced this broader support for Hedera, really cool program. I just want to highlight it here. This comes from friend of the channel, Tata, HBAR Tata on Twitter. Hedera council member IBM just announced its digital asset haven platform for banks, governments, and enterprises built in collaboration with DFNS headquarters. DFNS recently added Hedera as a tier 1 blockchain. Enterprise infrastructure is aligning fast. HBAR's time is near. We can look at this press release. So this is a platform for financial institutions and regulated enterprises entering the digital asset economy. Hedera going to be a big part in this. We have covered a ton of ETF news around Hedera. We got one more move that looks really promising for Hedera from Canary. Let's take a look at this news because this is pretty interesting. Breaking: Canary just filed Form 8A for HBAR ETF. This registers the fund for trading on U.S. exchanges. Bullish. Now, this is minor news. I mean, it's very, very good. It's a very, very good thing, but it's one little step in the process, allowing U.S. exchanges to trade it. Now, one thing I do want to point out about Hedera and ETFs is what you got to understand. I've listened to some spaces where investment advisors are talking, and they're getting like really basic level questions about Bitcoin and Ethereum. So if you want to know where the investment world is at with crypto, they're still getting used to Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs. They're still working their way through that. So it might be a little while, even if these go live, it might be a little while before that interest and the real flood of liquidity starts pouring in. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see how long it takes, but I do think this is good news. I think it's good for HBAR to have an ETF. There's other coins that I follow that I wish had one of these. So it's great news for Hedera. I thought this little video clip about institutions getting interested and the rise of institutions' interest in Hedera is really, really interesting. So I want to highlight this because I think it's really good to see. And let's see what they have to say.
I do think that there's slow momentum building on that though, and definitely being in Hedera, you get to hear a lot of institutions and enterprises that are experimenting or looking into crypto technology or Web3 technology and bringing it into their pilot programs and things like that. And I think that Hedera is really showing itself as having that sort of enterprise strength. And, we've known this for years, since like anyone who's been in Hedera since, 2019 or even earlier, knows that Hedera has had that angle, but it's always just been like, well, it's coming and enterprises are slow to adopt and things like that. But I think that there's like real momentum building across the entire crypto industry, not just on Hedera, but Hedera is one of those names that are getting a lot of attention and getting a lot of interest from enterprises just because of how it works, right? All of the benefits, I'm not going to go over them for Hedera, but like it really is showing. And I think that like just the excitement in our DeFi ecosystem is that is growing and like, outpacing some of the older names that used to be above us on like the CoinMarketCap charts.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because, earlier on, the CEO or CFO of Hedera said they were pivoting toward they were pivoting towards more retail focus because enterprises do want to see retail interest. But I think when you have something like Hedera that just works so smoothly, we're seeing this with Algorand too, to an extent, is that there's more adoption coming because frankly, people try it out and it just works. And I think you have to do a lot of proof of concept. So I've been thinking about the World Chess situation with Algorand and thinking like, well, maybe I should ease off a little because maybe you do have to get that proof of concept to show people it works. Hedera doesn't seem to have that problem though. I see more and more adoption of it as they're saying that interest is starting to come now, and I think people see success, they see interest, and then when you have all these big tech companies who are willing to serve on the council, the governing council for Hedera, I think that speaks volumes. Speaking of volume, I think more liquidity is about to come to Hedera from the European market. Some very interesting news about the EURC possibly coming to Hedera. Once again from Tata, but actually sharing what Loki said. So let's look at this. An interchain EURC circle deployment from base to Hedera appeared on Axelar's testnet via Axelar ITS. Possible that Axelar is preparing to bring EURC to Hedera? I would say that looks pretty likely. Now, it might be one of those things that takes a while to come out. Someone says just me testing stuff. I don't think that's a real person on that chain, but yeah, getting more liquidity from cross chain like this from a euro stable coin. I'm assuming that's a euro stable coin. I'm not familiar with that particular one. I know there's some euro stable coins on Algorand that I follow. I haven't actually heard much from them now that I think about it, but yeah, anytime you can add more liquidity to the chain, that's an awesome thing. And last but not least, we talked about this Bank of England news. We talked about why this was a big deal. It wasn't super solid at the time we heard it. It looks like it has now been confirmed that Hedera is in the running to be used by the Bank of England along with some other DLT solutions. But why don't we dive a little deeper into this news? This one's a little bit of a longer one. Bank of England and BIS Innovation Hub have publicly confirmed that Hedera was one of the 9 firms selected for their DLT Innovation Challenge, exploring how wholesale central bank money could be settled on external programmable ledgers. In her speech at the event, Victoria Cleland, who is Bank of England's Director of Payments, unveiled a synchronization lab, a live sandbox launching in spring 2026 to test atomic settlement of central bank money across traditional and DLT ledgers. This aligns perfectly with Hedera's deterministic finality, scalability, enterprise-grade security, and governance, key themes emphasized throughout the speech. If Hedera is chosen as synchronization operator or ecosystem partner, it could sit at the core of next-gen UK settlement infrastructure. With Bank of England moving toward a multi-money future, central bank money and tokenization deposits plus stablecoins, networks like Hedera are positioned to bridge legacy rails and power real-world finance. Now, they didn't mention what other ones there are, but I would like to look at that. Okay, so I did track down the existing firms, Ava Labs, Chainlink, and Ava Labs, which actually Chainlink we're a big fan of, Circle, Digital Asset, and KMPG, Hedera, HSBC, Kaleido, and Rails. Scottish Center Excellence in Digital Trust and DLT, along with partners Seeker, Nethermind, and Track Genesis. So I got to say, that's a very interesting selection of firms, and I'm a little surprised that Algorand wasn't included in there. I could see that being a very good one. You don't see XRP either. Very interesting. Chainlink and Hedera, of the coins that I cover, those are the two that are in there. So very interesting. But we did confirm it. This is on the Bank of England's website. The speech that was linked to did not mention those, but here they are in black and white, so we know it is verified. So thanks everyone for tuning in today. I hope you got something out of that news. We like to dive in and just share the news that's happening. A lot of people like to link that to price. I think that the days of news really having much impact on price other than in really tiny amounts is kind of over. I think we're more tied to macro cycles these days is what I'm seeing. It used to be the case. It used to be the old adage was buy the rumor, sell the news, because it would pump on the rumor, and then once the news came out, it was kind of too late at that point. But seems to be that that's not how it really works anymore. So instead, I'd say look at long-term macro cycles. We're still not really seeing that full rotation into alts, so we'll probably see that coming pretty soon. I mean, Bitcoin. I still think Bitcoin hasn't really finished its run yet. So. And we do have lengthening, shortening flattening cycles. I think that's pretty obvious at this point. It's been happening since I got into crypto in 2017, and it keeps happening. So anyway, I'm Frugal BC. Hope you're doing well out there. Stay safe. And as always, I will see you in the future.